This might be a little bit better question after spring practice, but I'm still going to hit you up with it. Just in regards to, what we saw out of 2022, who would be those guys on either side of the ball that you would expect to maybe break through that were just role players, didn't see the field much, or maybe had a limited role that need to be an impact guy next fall?
Yeah, so a really easy one is Pat Payton, defensive end. He won the ACC's Rookie of the Year. Didn't play as much as you would you would expect him to play next year, right? Like probably will play a much more significant role. Probably will get way more snaps and be able to make a pretty big impact for the Noles. I think another guy is Azare. That's kind of a cheating one though, because anybody that wins ACC Rookie of the Year is probably going to be pretty good the next year. Another one is Azare Thomas. He was your second highest rated recruit in last year's class. He's now your highest remaining one, as Sam McCall is in the transfer portal. He made some really nice plays in the bowl game, but as a young true freshman this year, didn't get a ton of snaps until later in the year or against teams that we were blowing out. So I think he's somebody that could really, really have a nice year. There's some kind of noise around Trayshawn Ward maybe leaving through the transfer portal. If that was to happen, I think a young guy named Rodney Hill could have a really, really good year for the Noles at running back next year. I think Trey Benson's obviously your number one, and you've got Toa Philly there too, but Florida State likes to spread the wealth there in the backfield. And so I think he could be really, really good. At wide receiver, you're going to bring in Hakeem Williams, who obviously wasn't on the team last year, but I think he's your kind of new instant impact guy that will come in and make a difference in year one. So those are some names that I would watch out for, a couple on offense, a couple on defense.
Ty, as soon as you hit me with the name Rodney Hill, I am not coming up with the top wide receiver recruit that this guy's a mystery man from the 22 class. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Destin Hill.
Destin Hill. What's going on with him? Do we know?
There have been some rumors. Sam Spiegelman from On3 dropped that he would be on campus and would be joining the team in May. That's kind of an interesting timeline because there's a couple of times that players can join between now and then. So it seems like, okay, well, maybe there's something that is going to be wrapped up in May. Maybe like whatever has been going on with Destin Hill will be done in May. I have no idea. I have no inside info there. But we'll see. When May rolls around, we'll see if he joins the team, if he's a take, if what's going on. But yeah, that was an interesting rumor that popped up not too long ago. If he doesn't make it in May, which I'm not holding my breath on this, we've heard it for 2 years now, I think it's probably time to close the book. But I do think that was an interesting rumor that floated around a few weeks ago on Destin Hill, out of Edna Carr High School in New Orleans.
And what did go down with Sam McCall? Because everything I heard from spring practice was obviously he was one of the top players he was the second rated player in the class, right? Or maybe the top rated player once Travis Hunter flipped. And that he had a great spring and everything was looking good. You mentioned the other safety who's got the tricky name, Azare
Thomas,
maybe surpassed him and really flashed during spring, is what I had heard. But still, Sam McCall, much expected of him. And then, he kind of disappears and just plays special teams and gets a few reps. But then he leaves. Is there any kind of story there?
Yeah, I think he, somewhat trying to be delicate with what we're saying. So maybe you can read into that a little bit. But yeah, I think he just wanted a bigger role, and I think, I think some of it was on him for not stepping up and taking that. I mean, I think, you saw Thomas get in there and be able to mix it up and play quite a bit. And I think that was on Thomas for being able to grasp the playbook and get in there and understand kind of what was going on. And, I don't know what the situation was. I'm not trying to blame McCall 100% here, but McCall just didn't really catch on the same way, and very talented kid, but a kid that Florida State didn't feel like they could put on the field, right? Like they were in a lot of close games and needed to win games, and you can't just sacrifice a game to make somebody happy. And so ultimately just wasn't super thrilled. There were reports and there were rumors that Sam McCall's the only reason he really joined the Noles was because he wanted to play with Travis Hunter. And so I do think there was a little bit of, from day one, just kind of a little frustration with McCall. Again, not toward Florida State, but just in general that Hunter wasn't there and they were boys and looking forward to playing with each other. And so just a situation that I think started to turn in the locker room a little bit too, where you were like, hey man, like we need to make a decision on what's best for our team here. And I don't even think it was kind of a mutual agreement. I think it was like, hey man, you gotta find somewhere else to go play, because you can't. Norvell's done a good job of building the culture up, and for any of his mistakes or any of the things that fans or rivals or anybody else wants to give him a hard time about. He's been really, really good in building that culture. And so I think he's also very protective of it. And so I think it got to a point where frustration kind of boiled over, and Florida State finally just said, like, hey man, like let's just part ways before it gets, worse before better. So yeah, I think it just ultimately didn't work out. Kid's really talented. We'll see. Picked Texas A&M. Heard there's some maybe grade concerns. We'll see kind of what that looks like, but hopefully he can kind of make something out of his career, and doesn't become somebody that you just kind of like don't hear about, because that would stink. But yeah, I think it's just probably best for both parties that he was moving on.
Well, they've had enough defensive backs leave Texas A&M the last few weeks that there should be a opportunity there. That's for sure.
For sure.